Jimmy Carr has sparked outrage with his sickening Holocaust joke, and not for the first time. The comedian admitted he feared he was going to get cancelled following his widely condemned line, which featured in his Dark Materials Netflix special. Carr said, "When people talk about the Holocaust, they talk about the tragedy and horror of 6 million Jewish lives being lost to the Nazi war machine. But they never mention the thousands of gypsies that were killed by the Nazis. No one ever wants to talk about that, because no one ever wants to talk about the positives." His ill-judged quip referenced the murder of up to 500,000 Roma and Sinti people by the Nazi regime, with famous faces such as Paddy Doherty, David Baddiel and even Boris Johnson hitting back. It's not even the first time Carr has referenced the Holocaust in a disgusting manner, as in 2008 he said, "They say there's safety in numbers. Tell that to 6 million Jews." It will come as no surprise that Carr has caused serious offense on more than one occasion, so here is a look at some of his most vile jokes. Stephen Hawking letter: get the news you want straight to your inbox. Sign up for a Mirror newsletter here. Jimmy sent a sick letter to the late scientific genius Stephen Hawking, who replied in the best way possible. The comic actually bonded with Hawking years after sending him the twisted message, which included a nasty joke about his condition. Stephen, who died in 2018 aged 76, suffered from motor neuron disease, an incurable illness that left him in a wheelchair and only able to speak through a computer-controlled machine. Claiming it was a well-worn comedic device to send a prank letter, Jimmy wrote to Stephen claiming his son shared a similar condition along with a vile insult. Speaking to the Daily Mail in 2019, Jimmy revealed, "It basically said, my son's got a similar condition to you. Has properly emified. He loves to play. Could we set up a playdate with you and him?" But Jimmy was left red-faced when Stephen sent back a beautiful response which read, "You're never too old to play, but I'm afraid I'm very busy. Here's a balloon ride, maybe he'd like to go on one. I went on one recently, they can put a wheelchair in the basket." Jimmy admitted he felt like the worst person in the world, and years later they met at an awards ceremony and Stephen invited the comedian for tea in Cambridge. They formed quite the friendship and Jimmy brought him to a number of his shows and parties, although couldn't resist another joke. He added, "When Stephen Hawking was drunk, there was no difference. I guess the voice modulator doesn't have a slur setting." Dwarfism and abortion. Back in June 2019, Jimmy disgustingly joked about dwarfism and abortion during his terribly funny stand-up tour. He is reported to have said, "Is a dwarf an abortion that made it?" His offensive remark was slammed by charity Little People UK, which was co-founded by Star Wars and Harry Potter actor Warwick Davis. It was saddened by the comedian's remarks and that it had been contacted by members of the dwarfism community who had raised concerns. Little People UK said it had approached Carr, who was made aware of the situation, as it called for him to reconsider using people with dwarfism as the subject of jokes. "We are saddened that in 2019 we have to deal with such prejudice to the dwarfism community, and other minority groups, in a time where we all strive to live equal lives and celebrate diversity without fear of humiliation or preconception," the charity told Sky News at the time. Little People UK said hearing Carr's joke repeated by members of the public would cause unnecessary distress and anxiety through no fault of the person with dwarfism, simply because they have a genetic difference. Paralympics. Jimmy got in hot water in 2009 for joking about the high number of amputee servicemen from the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts. Say what you like about those servicemen amputees from Iraq and Afghanistan, but we are going to have a effing good Paralympic team in 2012, he said to a packed Manchester Apollo. Colonel Richard Kemp, a former commander of British forces in Afghanistan, politicians, and some families of wounded soldiers condemned it as being in bad taste. Carr, who in the past had visited injured soldiers in hospital and at the Headley Court Rehabilitation Centre in Surrey, admitted he didn't regret making the joke but did not repeat it at his next gig. My audience aren't offended, but this other audience that reads the papers are offended. They're totally entitled to be offended by those kind of jokes, but they're normally not exposed to those kind of jokes, he told The Guardian. I know what the rules are on TV, what you can and can't say. There are 100 jokes in the show that are worse than that, so if you want to be offended you can find a lot of stuff. BBC apology. In January 2006, the BBC actually apologised for airing one of Jimmy's most offensive jokes. On Radio 4's Loose Ends, he said, "The male gypsy moth can smell the female gypsy moth up to 7 miles away, and that fact also works if you remove the word moth." The BBC apologised and claimed it should never have been allowed to air, stating, "This joke should never have been transmitted. We apologise for any offence caused." Gypsy Council Secretary Anne Badgett told The Guardian newspaper, "If I had a thin skin, I would be bleeding, but what I am curious about is this: what is Jimmy Carr's point? It's not as if it's funny, is it? Does he want people to spit at gypsy women because they smell? Does he want people to look at gypsy women and say poo? There are certain groups of people that everyone thinks they can make jokes about." However, Jimmy decided he would not follow the BBC and apologise. Do you have a story to share? Email webfeatures@trinitymirror.com.